Starting. Well. Looks like JP showed up for his own webinar. It's least I could do. Thank you guys for your patience. I realize I'm 3 minutes late by my clock. I'll shame myself accordingly. I like to create technical issues just to keep myself humble. But welcome here for our third webinar. I know this is the private session, which means you guys are the exclusive crowd. And if you do the math on that, it just means you're more valuable people than everybody else. So it means a lot to me that you guys would join me here in this private session, work-life balance, Redhead Sage tools, tips, and hacks for work-life balance. I'm excited to get into this. Tonight's going to be incredibly practical. If I have my magic wish, it will be that you and I leave with a handful of practical items that we implement, we test drive in our lives to bring more balance to our work-life scenarios and, man, and have a bigger smile on our face at the end of this thing than when it started. Cool. JP, I'm okay with that. I'm going to be talking to myself throughout this. So we're going to get incredibly practical. We're not going to be too chatty. I'm going to be laying down 33 and a half of my favorite tips on creating work-life balance. And as we get into it, I'm going to make a couple announcements here. But I'd be curious, if you guys want to comment in 0 to 10, what is your work-life balance? 10 is you're just like a ninja. Your work-life balance center of gravity is Zen. It's perfect. That's a 10. Good luck being a 10. 0 is, how do you spell balance? So just like in this moment, where do you think you're at? 0 to 10, feel free to comment it. I'd love to see how dysfunctional we all are. You better not be a 9 or a 10, or else I'm going to feel insecure about myself. I already see a 9 out of 10. I feel worse about myself. It's your fault. Jillian, how dare you? So cool. I love that. Thank you for knowing thyself. Where are you in this moment? And let's see. We're a couple of the housekeeping announcements before we start slicing into this thing. Number one, this webinar is part of the prelude to the launch of my new private membership community, AwakenWithJP Premium AF. So thank you guys for being a part of the drum roll for the community. I would invite you to get ready to rock and roll in this community with me. It's going to be a tribe of like-minded, like-hearted people who are ready to grow together while having freaking fun. Not grow, be dead serious. We're looking to grow together while having fun and being playful. I think part of the meaning of life is to be playful. Otherwise, we don't have a life while we're trying to live our life. So if you want to get in on the first notification we send out when the community is open for membership, please go to awakenwithjp.com/waitlist. And you'll likely see actually a link on your webinar screen. If you're here with me live right now, you should see a link to join the waitlist. So please go ahead and do that if this community is right for you. And if the community is not right for you, first off, I question, like, why the hell are you here? It's awesome that you're here. I'm happy that you're here. But, you know, if it's not right for you, then don't join the waitlist. The other thing is we're giving away a free year's membership to the tribe, the community. So to enter, all you have to do is comment in with 2 people's names and join the wait list. You're entered to win the free year. So again, join the wait list if you want. Don't join it if you don't want. awakenwithjp.com/waitlist. You should see the link. And then, yeah, man, and enter to win a free year subscription. I'm going to enter it. I don't think I wouldn't even give myself a free year subscription. So I'm going to try to win it the hard way. Enter 2 names, join the wait list. We'll be off and rolling. At the end of our session today, if you'd be with me, I'd like to do due diligence and share a little bit more about the lifeblood of the private community that I'm launching. It's really a byproduct of the heart and soul of my mission. I'd also like to share with you what I would call the Awake AF Manifesto, which is some of the core values that direct the lifeblood of this community. And really, without further ado, why don't we start acting like we know what we're doing with ourselves tonight? Redheaded sage tips, tricks, and hacks for better work-life balance. 33 and a half tips coming at you. Here's what's going to happen. First off, I'm going to take a sip of tea. I burnt myself. Second off, I think we should all take a breath together. Ready? I like taking breaths with people because one, it feels good to breathe deep, and two, it allows me to have a sense of control over other people. When I ask them to take a deep breath, then they take a deep breath. It's like, yeah, awesome. I felt like I had control over them. Makes me feel more powerful than I actually am. Okay, here's what's happening after we just did what just happened, which is I'm going to throw these 33 and a half tips at you for work-life balance at you, pretty rapid fire. Tonight, I'm not after longevity. We're not looking to do a marathon session. I want tonight to be super practical so you can walk away from tonight making practical change in your life. So my goal, it feels like I'm going to fail this goal. Bear with me. But my goal nonetheless is to spend less than a minute on each of these tips. So I'd like to give you the practical, not so much the explanation, a minute or less of explanation. Some of them, like, let's just have fun and be mysterious. Like to leave you with something and you say, why would JP say that? Why would he tell me to do that? We're going that rapid fire. You guys okay? Which, by the way, if you're here to help yourself, yay, I'd recommend that. Then I would recommend you have something to take notes on. Now, you're probably watching this on your computer or phone, so like you already have something to take notes on, but you got to have your screen available to look at my majestic blue dolphin-like eyes. So whatever it is to take notes on, I would ask you to write down my 33 and a half tips, the ones that resonate with you. You probably won't want to write all of them down. The reason why I'm throwing 33 and a half at you, one, I hate whole numbers, so half just makes sense. And two, I guarantee that everything that works for me will sure as hell not work for you. You and I are different people. Let that sink in. You and I are different people. Unless your name's also JP, then we're exactly the same. So I would guess at best, some of what works for me will work for you. The ones that don't resonate with you, throw those away. The ones that really like calibrate into your heart and soul, please write those down so you can do yourself the gift of test driving some of these practices, some of these mindsets. And if they work for you, like, awesome. Keep the car until the car's failing you. And if you test drive some of these practices, they don't seem to be enhancing your life and bringing more balance to your mind and your actions with work and life, then please throw them the hell away. Please don't waste your time. Please don't waste your energy. Okay. Now, I see myself on the screen. I think I look slightly tired. I think I look slightly tired because I'm slightly tired. A little bit of sleep debt happening. So I'll be okay. Don't worry about me. Worry about me a little bit. I worry about me. Sometimes I worry that I don't worry enough about myself. Maybe I should take life more seriously. I think I'd have more fun if I took life so seriously that I didn't have fun. That would be fun. JP, get on with it. Thank you. Telepathically reading your mind. You don't have to be so aggressive, though. That sip, I did not burn myself. It's cooling down. It's good. It's good. These 33 and a half tips, I just want to create a little bit of context super quick. These 33 and a half tips will fit within a five-sided framework. It's not your normal picture frame here, folks. It's a pentagon. Is that the one with 5 sides? Let's pretend it is. So the five-sided framework for these tips for work-life balance come from the pillars of my Awaken with JP Premium AF community. The pillars being purpose, wellness, relationships, career, self. Is that 5? I think it was. Purpose, wellness, career, relationships, self. So in my experience, if we're not acknowledging these, call them 5 arenas, 5 dimensions of life, and we're trying to create work-life balance, we aren't going to be balanced. You know, trying to work with 2 legs of a 4-legged stool and create balance with only 2 legs, it's not going to create balance. We have to acknowledge all the legs that contribute to the entity that is our life, analogized through the metaphor of the 4-legged stool, which is analogizing the 5 pillars of my community. Wow, that's a stretch. Here's a tip for you. I'm reading your thoughts. Here's a tip for you, JP. Next time, come up with an analogy that involves 5 things instead of 4. That way you won't have to have an analogy for your analogy to explain the thing you're explaining. It's like, I get it. So nonetheless, these 33 and a half tips, they'll all fit into one or more of these dimensions of purpose, career, wellness, relationships, and self. By self, it's our self-realization journey. I don't know that we can have work-life balance without acknowledging all of these things. So in other words, the term work-life, that's misleading. I think we've misled you by calling this whole series the work-life balance series. It's misleading because it's suggesting this is a 2-dimensional phenomenon, but no, it's 5 dimensions from my delusional point of view. So sometimes, you know, we'd wonder, which, by the way, work-life balance is the #1 imbalance based on the polls I've done with my audience. So it's no wonder it's the #1 balance. We call it a 2-dimensional phenomenon, and we're expecting to balance a 5-dimensional entity with only 2 dimensions of consideration. I'm gonna get off my high horse on that. I love multi-dimensional considering. Kind of helps me get out of the matrix. So with that said, are you ready to go rapid fire through these tips with me? Some of them are action. Some of them are mindset. Some of them are inaction. One of my absolute favorite quotes is, "In the pursuit of the Tao." I already screwed the quote up. Take 2. "Every day in the pursuit of knowledge." Add something new. "But every day in the pursuit of the Tao, let something go." The Tao, T-A-O, you know, if you're ultra spiritual, of course you know of that word, but if you're like me, you have no clue what that word actually means. But the meaning I assign to that word, Tao, it represents balance. So the reason why I just say that here in the preface of the context for our session tonight is because some of what we talk about will be the inaction of letting things go. If we just try to balance work life by adding more, we're probably going to actually be making ourselves less balanced, more frustrated, less time, more seriousness, less playfulness by trying to add more things. So we want to add practices that will help us, and we want to shed some of the scar tissue that's not serving us anymore. So let's get to the freaking tips, JP. Off we go. Know your purpose. Tip #1. Know your purpose. If you joined me and my guest Sean Whalen last night, we talked about primary purpose and secondary purpose. So know your primary purpose, know your secondary purpose. I would invite you to consider that whatever you are doing right now, that's your primary purpose. Please be present with it. If you're not, you'll be in the future, or your mind will be in the past, Good luck finding balance if you're leaning really far to the right into the future or really far to the left in the past. The balance point is right now. So whatever you're doing, can you actually show up and be present with what you're doing and find the fact that there is purpose in it? That's primary purpose, in my opinion. Secondary purpose, that's basically what you stand for. Just a soundbite of my secondary purpose: connection and creativity. So the vast majority of my actions in both my work life and private life, there is a hint, they're allowed to be aligned. They don't have to be fighting forces. So most of my actions are going to be aligned with connection and or creativity. Connection, for me, that's connecting to people, helping them, learning from them, experiencing the magnitude of communion with people. Connection and creativity, that's my purpose. May not be yours. What's your primary purpose? What's your secondary purpose? On we go to number 2. Intentional gratitude every morning. Here's the practice that I do. When I am with my lovely lady, Amber, fiance, we just picked out our wedding date today, by the way, June 2nd, 2018. You guys can all come. You won't be allowed in. I think that would cost a lot of money, but you can all like come and like storm the venue. I think that'd be kind of fun. Rob the bar. I like that fantasy. So with Amber, my fiance, we wake up in the morning and we'll each share what we're most grateful for. We'll speak it. I love that. And if I'm traveling by myself, then for me, it's a writing practice. On a good day, I'll write down or I'll speak 3 items that I'm grateful for. And ideally, when you're speaking it, when you're feeling it, when you're speaking it or writing it, you want to feel the gratitude. Let's not make this an intellectual phenomenon. Can we embody it, connect to our hearts? The emotional energy, that's the fast life energy that actually makes an impact in our life. It's way stronger than thought. There's research done that shows the electromagnetic field of the heart is 5,000 times stronger than the electromagnetic field of the brain, which means if we get into our heart energy, i.e. emotion, not just thought, we have, in theory, 5,000 times more power to make impact on our life. That's why we don't want to just talk about gratitude, write it, or think it. We want to feel it with this morning gratitude practice. Man, if we're not grateful for what we have, no matter how little or how much, you're not grateful for what you have, you will be in a psychological position of resenting what you don't have. From my point of view, that may or may not be true for you. On we go. Tip number 3. Let me actually read it so I get coherent here, JP. Weightlifting with your mind. What do I mean by that? A daily mental challenge. It's absolutely changed my life. If you don't challenge your muscles, they will actually get weaker. If you don't challenge your mind, it will actually get weaker in my experience. In fact, I believe our mind, our emotions, our physical body crave challenges. If you were a gifted student when you were younger, like I pretend to be, you might have acted out in class. 4th grade, you might have like an 8th grade math level, but they're doing 4th grade math. You get really bored, you get antsy, you might start acting out. It's because you're not getting challenged the way you crave. And we're still like that present day. We're just not in a classroom with a teacher to yell at us, so it's hard to notice. Challenging your mind every day. This can be as simple as listening to a podcast that makes you think. Ideally, here's how I love to challenge my mind. I'm always listening to podcasts, not literally always, but typically every day I'm listening to some portion of a podcast with intelligent people. And ideally, it's not just people talking about what I already think to be true. I want my beliefs to be challenged. Just like if I bench press 100 pounds and I never bench press over 100 pounds, like, okay, I'll be at a 100-pound maintenance level, but I won't be growing my strength. So I love listening to people talk who see things differently than I do, and they're talking about things that aren't familiar to me. That, at the very least, is a wonderful practical mental challenge. Ask you to consider that. Weightlifting with your mind. Tip number 4. Prioritize your priorities. When do we ever do that? Not often enough, JP. So would you be willing to actually list out your 5 highest priorities in life? And here's a little secret for you. From my delusional point of view, this is easy for me to say. It's honestly a challenging journey for me to embody, but I do my best. Anything that has to do with the heart trumps. So my relationship with my fiance is my highest priority right now. It even trumps work. And my work is near and dear to me. I feel incredibly purpose-driven. So what are your priorities? Oftentimes I find people I'm working with, when I fall off the horse in my life, I'm prioritizing things that actually aren't my priorities at all. Does that make me feel peaceful, centered? Absolutely not. When I'm prioritizing my priorities, it makes me feel much more on purpose, centered, balanced, and therefore I have a much larger degree of peace of mind and peace of heart. Which leads into tip number 5. Can you differentiate between a priority and what's urgent? What's a priority and what's urgent? Oftentimes, they're not the same thing. Just because something is urgent doesn't mean it's the priority. That which screams the loudest doesn't necessarily need and deserve the most attention. My wonderful executive assistant that I work with, Karen, her and I are always working with each other, coaching each other on this, because we get so much communication. We've got a lot of pots in the fire, if you will, a lot of folks reaching out to us. And a lot of them have a sense of urgency that is very seductive, because when an email comes in hot, when a phone call comes in hot, then the second phone call, second email, third email, that's really urgent. And that might be someone else's priority, but is it ours? That's for me and Karen to assess. I've certainly been a slave to prioritizing the urgent, and that leaves me depleted, especially when it's not even the urgent stuff in my life. But the urgent stuff in my life, and I'm not talking about life and death emergencies, I'm talking about the things that make me feel anxiety. That's not even necessarily my priority, but especially what's urgent in the lives of other people around me, that's not necessarily my priority. Now, I'm not talking about, don't help anybody. No, I'm talking about our cuppeth has to be fulleth before we can filleth other people's cuppeth with the teeth I'm about to drinketh. So the simple tip, ask ourselves, is this a priority or is this urgent? Sometimes it's actually an urgent priority, most of the time not. Man, community integration. Did you know human beings are pack animals? Our 3 basic needs, safety, security, which are kind of the same thing, tribal association. Those are 3 of our basic human needs, very root chakra-ish. If you're a chakra kind of person, I am. Tribal association. Who is your community? I don't care if it's like-minded people, more importantly, like-hearted people. Who is your community, your tribe? Do you have one? Awesome. Be integrated in it. If you don't have a tribe, your tribe is waiting for you. Please go out and find it. When we're not integrated into a community of like-hearted people, we feel, my experience, we feel a deep-seated sense of separation. It provokes anxiety, low grade, sometimes high grade, and certainly contributes to us feeling out of balance. Newsflash. According to JP, all people are needy. And it's okay. We have so much shame about our needs that we develop the need to pretend like we're not needy. I have the need to not be needy. You're so needy. You are needy. And that need to not be needy isn't going to be met. It's just a shame-based need. One of our needs, if you are a human, it is to have a tribe, to have a community. I love Brene Brown. She's one of my favorite authors. She distinguishes between fitting in and belonging. They are vastly different. We're looking for a community that we can belong to. Fitting in means you conform. You get approval, therefore you fit in. It's kind of like the high school mentality. That's not what meets our deep-seated need. It's not what gives us support so that we can become a part of a whole that's greater than ourselves, which helps us realize our greatness that's beyond who we think we are. We're talking about a community that you can belong to. That means it's an acceptance-based community, not an agreement-based community. An agreement-based community, a lot, maybe not all, but a lot of religions aren't acceptance-based. They are agreement-based. Believe our beliefs or else you're not part of our community. That's a fit-in kind of community, agreement-based. What feeds the human heart, what feeds the soul is an acceptance-based community that you can actually belong to. You can think differently. In fact, having a different point of view is celebrated, not shamed. That to me is vital important. I've lived so much of my adult life not being integrated into a community that I can belong to. I've given myself away. I've prostituted myself. I'm not even ashamed to say it anymore. I've prostituted myself to fit in, conform, and that comes at the expense of I'm not being me. I'm being who I think I'm supposed to be in order to be approved by this community. Let's freaking grow up, JP. Be you. Find the people who will accept you as you are. I definitely went over my minute time limit on that one. So community integration. Tip number 7, super practical tip here. I caution productivity apps on your phone. The problem, there's a lot of like cool offerings on apps on our phone that help us be more productive, organized, time management, meditation apps. Awesome. But the problem with those, for me personally, maybe not you, is they're on a problem. The phone is a problem for at least 90% of people I see, including the weirdo who's in the mirror every morning when I'm admiring his majestic good looks. So what can be a strain on relationships? What can pull our attention out of ourself very easily is the black hole that is the never-ending stream of attention grab that is on our phone, social media, and all of our other things that we pretend we need. So that's a caution on maybe what to not do. Tip number 8, the science of saying no. You ready for this? When you say no to things that weigh you down and pull you out of balance, they won't pull you out of balance anymore. What's it take to say no? Answer, according to me, is courage. Honestly, vulnerability. A willingness to actually be afraid. Like, wow, when I say no to someone, like, no, I can't meet you there. My schedule's full, or I don't have... my cup's not filled, so it's not a yes for me. It's a no, for now at least. That's scary because I come from the background of being a people pleaser. When I say no, that's me not being a slave to my people pleaser. The good news is I get my sense of self back. That's honoring me. The bad news is it's scary to me because I come from a people pleasing background that basically says, you aren't worthy unless you're pleasing people, JP. Now, I don't believe that to be true intellectually, but somatically, feeling-wise, there's still a little bit of attachment I have to that belief. So my experience is it takes a lot of courage to say no, but learning to say no is absolutely vital to have any resemblance of work-life balance. If this tip resonates with you, within the next 24 hours, would you be willing to say no to somebody? See if you live through it. See if you live through it. You probably will. Tip number 9, obeying the doctrine of hell yes. So we talked about like, okay, learn to say no. Yeah, of course, the old saying, our yes has no meaning until we learn to say no. I definitely believe that. That's a yes for me. But then the hell yes. There's people wiser than myself, and I'm not wise enough to remember who they are, who I've heard saying, I love this. If it's not a hell yes, then it's a no. Wow, does it light me up? Does it excite me? Is it a hell yes? If it's a kind of maybe, it's a no. If it's a yeah, it's a no. If it's a hell yeah, it's a yes. Tip number 10, ask for help. Let's get super practical. In the next 24 hours, would you have what's more courage than saying no? It's the courage to ask for help. Remember a few minutes ago I mentioned we're needy. One of the biggest causes of imbalances in my life is an unwillingness to have the courage and be vulnerable to ask for help. Self-sufficiency is an interesting disorder, in my opinion. Now, I'm not talking about being codependent here. That's something completely different. But self-sufficiency, the opposite extreme of codependence, it's equally dysfunctional. It's just on the opposite polarity, so it looks disguised, but it's just as dysfunctional. A lot of self-sufficiency is actually a facade hiding our fear of connection. So we disconnect and we disguise the fact that we're very disconnected under the guise of, yeah, I'm self-sufficient. I can do everything myself. Might actually destroy me. I might actually severely limit me because other people have great gifts for me. They can enhance me. But if I learn to actually ask for help, then I dare say I open my umbilical cord so I can receive support that life has to offer me. And honestly, did you know that other people are alive in this life? Therefore, other people are part of life. Therefore, other people are a part of how life can support you if you allow it. Ask for help. I love it. No, I don't love it. I love the results. I'm proud that I can actually ask for help once in a while now. Yerba mate is the answer to your question. Sorry for the noise. Tip number 11, do a worthiness assessment. What do I mean by this? Take a mental inventory. What do you do in order to be worthy? Is it working? Is it trying to people please your partner? Is it providing? Is it producing something? Is it being creative? Is it being a nice person? Is it being the yes person? Is it always getting approval? What do you do to earn your worthiness? Take that assessment, it's all a mental inventory, and then realize what you're looking at is what blocks your worthiness. All of us, one of our deepest needs is to be worthy, to know our worthiness and feel it. And when that need isn't met, we feel incredibly out of balance. And then what we actually do is we try to earn worthiness, which makes us feel even more out of balance. Then we're on a treadmill that's moving faster than we can actually possibly move because we're trying to earn our worthiness in ways that provide inherently zero worthiness, because the fact that we're trying to earn our worthiness means we're not coming from a place of worthiness. We're coming from a place of complete lack of worthiness. Thus, our actions of trying to earn worthiness aren't worthiness attractors. They're unworthiness affirmations. So when you notice what you're doing to try to become worthy, can you drop it? Or can you at least drop your attachment that this is actually going to allow me to be worthy? I dare say nothing we ever do can make us worthy. It can get us people's approval, which is a drug a lot of us are addicted to. But I think our worthiness can only come from who we are, what we are, our being. And we actually cover that up with the scar tissue of trying to earn worthiness. So in my opinion, a courageous way to balance is drop trying to earn worthiness. And if that's not easy to say, what is? Tip number 12, the Shining principle. So the movie with Jack Nicholson, The Shining, love it. All work, no play makes Jack and JP a dull boy. Prioritize play is the practical of this tip. Can you prioritize play into your life? And then actually prioritize play. Tip number 13, upgrade your beliefs exercise. I went through this in the first session earlier this week. Please check that out. I'm going to hit the 10-second version highlights. Write down 5 beliefs you have about yourself, 5 beliefs you have about your work life. Then go through and upgrade those beliefs. And then take action. Pick at least one new upgraded belief and take action. Put that belief into action. So have the awareness of what your current beliefs are. Then upgrade the beliefs. It's an imagination exercise. It's awesome. Then we take it from just abstract imagination into life through action. Here's my 10 new upgraded beliefs. How can I take one and take action to validate this new belief? Man, I rushed through that, but to rapid fire. Went into a lot more explanation and instruction on this exercise. Session 1, check that out. I think I was wearing a lighter blue shirt. Yeah, if you just want to see my fashion statement of that day. Man, tip number 15, relentless communication with your partner. Lack of communication equals lack of communion, which equals lack of union, which equals we're not together, which equals imbalance. But communication, I'm not just talking conversing. That's thought-based stuff. I'm talking communication. This is heart-based stuff. Communion, where we actually find togetherness and connection with our partner. There is so much balance that happens from that. And then when we're in our work environments, friendship environments, can we actually have the courage to communicate, not just converse? Have feeling-based communication. Tip number 15, batch emails. In fact, it's batch communication. There's studies like that's an interesting seduction. Research shows, and other research shows the opposite, JP. But nonetheless, studies suggest when we're doing a task and then our attention is diverted away from the task, our phone dings, a new email has come in. That sounds urgent, but is it a priority? We want to question that. We check the email and then we go back to the priority task at hand. Studies show it can take up to 20 minutes for our attention, focus, and concentration to go back to the optimal level we were before the distraction. So in my opinion, it's very important that we prioritize the priorities, mentioned that earlier, and the incessant communication. We get a dozen phone rings a day, probably a lot more on average. If we allow our attention to divert to that each time, we're spreading our attention thin. Good luck feeling centered doing that. So I love batching emails, batching communication. For me, it's typically I'll get to them for a session in the morning and a session in the evening. I got to prioritize what keeps me balanced. Tip number 16, how you guys doing so far? Let's take a break here. Let's take a breath. Let's get a sense of control going here. That breath felt very spiritual. So good. Let's take a sip of yerba mate because that's a very spiritual tea. What tip that we've gone through so far in the first 15 or so resonates the most with you as far as what would likely add the most benefit to your life? Which one is it? Please note it in the comments. You can abbreviate it if you want. Principle 13. That's not lucky. Back at it. Act like I can read my notes. Oh, this is actually a note about notes. This is like super specific to me. It's like so amateur and like caveman-like, but man, it's important to me. Tip number 16, win the day with a Post-it note. I've got my schedule, I got my calendar, stuff on that. but it's on my phone, it's on my computer, those potential openings of black holes of distraction. So I find I prioritize my priorities each day. I look at my calendar in the morning, I'll take priorities from that and integrating the priorities of my personal life. And then I have my Post-it note, which is I'm pretending to hold right here, apparently. The Post-it note's actually in the other room right now. I feel naked without it. So this, my Post-it note becomes my holy book of the day. Things always come in that seem urgent, they seem red hot, but my Post-it note's sort of like the North Star that keeps me on track with being balanced, with being true to my priorities, which therefore it feels like I'm being true to myself. And the other thing is, a Post-it note, it's not a black hole of distraction. I haven't been able to download any apps on my Post-it note pad. Wish I could. I don't even carry the whole pad around because then I potentially might write other things, which could be a distraction. It's one Post-it note. The magic of Post-it notes. Would you like to see a whole book written? The magic of Post-it notes. It's like, wow, the fact that you wrote a whole book on the magic of Post-it notes kind of goes against the very magic of a single Post-it note. That's not going to be my next book. I had a dream last night that I wrote a second book. I've actually got a book signing coming up in a little while tonight. Thus, on to the next one. Got to be efficient here, JP. Tip number 17, turn the notifications and alerts off on your phone and on your computer that aren't associated with your priorities. Back in the day, my social media stuff would ding when a new mention or whatever came in, and that almost put me in a mental institution. It's like, well, okay, I guess I got to look at that now. So I'm a big fan of turn off alerts, both the sounds as well as the notifications that just appear on your screen that you don't need to know about. If you batch the communication, if you batch checking your social media, then you go there on your terms. You're not in a reactive state. By the way, when we're in a reactive state, that's analogous to being under a stress response. And if you do the math on being under a stress response, that's actually stressful. So can you go to your phone on your terms? Not the attention grab terms of all your apps that are truly designed to monopolize your attention and therefore they compete with each other. They're all on your phone. That's a little bit of a cluster. Number 18, I love this tip. Now we're really getting into the body. Microdose movement throughout the day. Some of us have heard, and some of us might do, microdosing of like psilocybin. Some people microdose LSD. Not my thing. But for me, microdosing movement is very important to keep me feeling alive, balanced, and centered in both my mind and body. So for me, a macro dose of movement is, I'm exercising for a half hour or an hour. But a micro dose is, I've been sitting at my desk for 45 or 60 minutes. I'm going to get up for a minute. I'll either jump up and down, or I'll do 10 body weight squats. It's a microdose of movement. It's incredibly insignificant in the scheme of things, and it makes a significant difference in my mindset and the aliveness of my body. Microdose movement. Tip number 19, mini dose meditation. Do you meditate? Do you? Why aren't you answering me? You're triggering my abandonment issues. Do you meditate? I'm just amusing myself. So I call it mini dosing meditation because big doses of meditation haven't worked for me. The reason why they haven't worked for me is I don't do them, not regularly. For me, meditation has deep, impactful benefits on my overall mind-body balance. I definitely feel it, but I've got to do it consistently. It's just like exercise. Doing a big dose of exercise once a month isn't going to do much for us. But if we're exercising consistently, even small doses of exercise every day, that's what will actually help us create fitness. I find the same thing with meditation. For me, a mini dose of meditation is 10 minutes. That's something I will do every day. Therefore, I get the benefit of meditation. On paper, is longer better? Probably. In practical reality, if I don't do longer, is longer better? Probably not. So whatever mini dose of meditation you can do to get yourself to meditate, I would invite you to consider that as a very, very essential tip for creating work-life balance. Tip number 20, proactive intimacy and heart communication. By intimacy, yeah, that can be a sexual expression. I felt butterflies in my stomach when I said that. So yeah, sex can be part of intimacy for sure, but also emotional intimacy. Proactively creating emotional intimacy and communication with the people that it's right to do that with in our life. Tip number 21, orphan your phone when it's friend or partner time. You can tell by a few tips revolving around the phone. I kind of demonize the phone, at least in my life. It's got demonic qualities. So kind of going back to the tip before, prioritizing intimacy, a huge disruptor of intimacy is having a great conversation. The phone dings. I look at it. What does this symbolize to the person that we're talking to? What it symbolizes to me, at least, is this is more important than you. Because where my attention is what's important to me. And honestly, if we're looking at it in this moment, it's like, yeah, I'm prioritizing the phone over you. So when it's connect with another meaningful person in your lifetime, would you be willing to abandon your phone? If it needs therapy in the future to deal with the trauma of abandonment, we can get your phone some therapy. But you know, it might also be stoic, might not need therapy. Tip number 22, we're on the home stretch. Use intentional proactivity with social media. What this means for me is when I check social media, I will have a very intentional reason why I'm checking it. Otherwise, I do notice there's a what I would call an anxiety-driven interest in checking social media. And when that happens, it's truly a desire to disconnect from myself, to not feel my feelings, not know what it's like in my body, not experience my thoughts. But it's I would call it be a little dramatic, but it feels true to me, a disgusting way of dissociating from ourselves. Tip number 23, sharpen the mind and soften the heart with daily doses of physical attention. So in other words, exercise. I'm not talking about the microdose of movement here. I'm telling you and I what we already know. And even though we already know it, it is definitely one of my top 33 and a half practices for creating work-life balance, and that is exercise regularly. I'm not a religious devotee of any exercise cult. I don't CrossFit, yoga, anything, walking, anything in between. I think the best exercise for us is, first off, the one that doesn't hurt us, and two, the one that we're actually willing to do. What else have we got here, JP? Tip number 24, this is one of my favorites. Create creative time. Fancy way of saying have creative time. I never gave myself creative time until almost 3 years ago. In fact, it was, wow, happy anniversary. It was 3 years ago to this day, October 5th, 2014, that I released my first comedy video, How to Be Ultra Spiritual. I remember dates like that. It's like a disorder. I don't know why I do. But yeah, October 5th, 2014 was the first comedy video I released. That marked birthing into a whole new world, and that world that I emerged in, covered in amniotic fluid, looking around. I didn't know what the hell's going on, don't know what I'm doing, don't even know how to function in this world. That was a world of creativity I hadn't known before. So my videos are my creative outlet. My comedy is a creative outlet. I've had a lot of connection in my life. A lot of working with people, thousands of clients, helping them help themselves heal their pain, heal their trauma, heal their wounds, step into their personal power. But I was very, very empty on the creative side. If we don't have creative time in our lives, and I'm talking about on a regular basis, I think it's at least as important as exercise. So I'm not talking about creativity once a month. I'm talking about creativity multiple times a week, ideally every day. If we're not doing that, then I dare say we're like the fetus, disconnected. We don't have the umbilical cord connecting us to a source greater than ourselves. I think we get heavily nourished when we are in a creative space. The umbilical cord of consciousness that's open is open, and we get nourished. And you might say, JP, I'm not a creative person. I don't have a creative outlet. Your homework, opportunity for activity, is create your method of creativity. You don't have to find one and marry it. You can date creative options. See which ones you like, see which ones you don't like. So get creative on how you can get creative. It's a paradox. What do we got here, JP? Losing my place. Yeah, tip number 25. This too shall pass. This is kind of like a burn the forest. You know how forest fires can actually be good for the forest? Like leaves the soil well nourished. So I bring this up because it means what balances you now, you'll need to let that burn one day. I think if you and I get attached to what balances us right now, what balances our lives right now, if we get attached to it, eventually those methods, those practices, those mindsets, those beliefs will pull us out of balance, because we grow, but the methods don't grow. So we need to upgrade to better methods as we grow. So that's why we want to let the forest of how we burn ourselves, the forest of how we balance ourselves, let that burn. Don't burn yourself, burn the forest so you can be more balanced. So in other words, allow ourselves to be non-attached to how we balance ourselves. Don't worship the method, worship the balance that the method gives you. Throw the method away as soon as it doesn't serve you. I'm a big fan of throwing away practices that don't serve me. I'm a big fan of being non-religious about all of them, looking at all of them as tools that I use to serve me, not tools that use me to serve them. Boom. What's a practice you have in your life that served you really well once upon a time, but is actually disserving you now? It's expired. I'm guessing you have some. The question is, are they still labeled in your mental faculty system as still useful? It takes awareness to figure out, like, oh, those oranges I put in the fridge 10 years ago, they're a little expired at this point. Tip number 26, follow your heart. I think our head has a terrible sense of balance. I think our heart has the best center of gravity. I don't like to make decisions based on what I think. I like to make decisions based on what I feel. When something enlivens me, like I feel actually lighter in my chest, like it's subtle, but it's real, I want to follow that. And when it, opportunity or a possibility makes me feel heavier, well, I want to honor that. I don't want to say yes when my heart is saying a no. So I think our heart is the absolute most accurate North Star to us. A good friend of mine named Brandon Hawk, he has a saying that says, offend your mind in honor of following your heart. So in other words, sometimes when I'm following my heart, it pisses my mind off. My mind doesn't like it, but I've burnt myself enough times following my head and betraying my heart to learn there is a big time negative consequence that comes with comforting my mind at the expense of betraying the wisdom of my heart. Tip number 27, contribute to someone else. Like this is like reaching out and helping someone, being there, contributing. Contributing is one of the ways we get connected. I hear a lot of people talk about, Tony Robbins, Tim Ferriss, And this is true in my life. When I'm feeling flustered, when I'm just can't see the trees through the forest in my life, getting caught up in the details, one of the quickest ways for me to pattern interrupt and get my head out of the sand is get my head out of my life for a little bit of time and help someone. Quit taking myself so seriously and start connecting to someone else. It's actually self-therapy. Don't tell them that we want them to think we're just like all good and altruistic. So I think there's a beautiful art to not giving ourselves away and being the severely wounded psychological rescuer where our self-worth is absolutely zero unless we're always rescuing and trying to help other people. That's not what I'm talking about. I'm talking about actually contributing to other people. By the way, when we're coming from that severely damaged psychological place where we try to rescue people, I do that a lot. That's actually not helping them, in my opinion. It's using them, and energetically, that's a take, not a give. What's next, JP? Tip number 28, nourish your body and mind with nourishing foods. I use nourishing twice in that tip. That's eating clean. I don't think there's any way around this. If we're feeding our bodies crap, our bodies and minds will start to function crappier. Crap isn't a good source of balance. You can quote me on that. By the way, tons could be said about nutrition, but I want to move along here. Tip number 31, feel your feelings. Every day, can you make an intentional effort to feel a feeling? I'm not talking about all of them. Like, start simple and practical. Can you feel a feeling, starting with a body sensation? Tingling in my chest. Right now, I have tingling in my arms. Guess what? When I'm feeling this sensation in my arms, that's called connection. I'm connected to me right now. When I'm saying, what people who I don't know on Facebook, what are their opinions about things that I don't care about? Guess what? I'm not feeling anymore. Me, which means I'm not connected to me. Being connected to our feelings is one of the, I would dare say, the most powerful way to be connected to ourselves. We bring our center of gravity deep into thyself, and it leaves us like the well-balanced Qigong master that people can't push over. Tip number 32, assess what you need to cut away from your life. So if you take an inventory, what do I need to cut away from my life that's pulling me down, pulling me out of balance, it's weighing on me? What might that be? I dare say you deserve to ask yourself the question, so I'm asking you to ask yourself the question, what isn't serving you that you need to cut away? Is it a habit? Is it a relationship? Is it a job? What might it be? Tip number 33, masterful breathing. Breathing's a big enough topic that I feel like I'm betraying it by creating a soundbite that says masterful breathing. So I'll be brief and just say being very conscious of how we're breathing, deep breaths in rather than shallow, rapid breaths. It has a very strong impact on our autonomic nervous system that has a very strong impact on our mind and our body, and therefore our perception of how balanced we feel versus how anxious or abrasive we feel in this interesting phenomenon called ourself. Tip number 33 and a half. We made it. Daily dose of vitamin V. Vulnerability. Daily dose of vitamin vulnerability. If you're not being vulnerable every day, then I dare say you're putting a calcification shell around your heart. Can you challenge yourself to be vulnerable once a day? Then you say, yeah, I'd love to be vulnerable once a day. How do I do that? Here's how. Name a feeling, not a story. Name a feeling in the absence of a story. I feel angry right now. No rationalization, no story. The mental story erodes the vulnerability. It justifies it, it rationalizes it, it covers it up. It appears to explain it and open it up, but I dare say it covers it up. It covers the wounded heart that needs help. It needs to be exposed so it can be connected to. So can you name a feeling, preferably with another human being that you have a heart-based connection with, in other words, someone who it's safe to be vulnerable with? Can you name a feeling while feeling the feeling that you're feeling without explaining the feeling? For me, it's actually, I'll use the term again, disgusting shame-based behavior that we all fall into to one degree or another, where we believe we have to justify our feelings. It's like I have to prove and explain why I have the right to feel this, which is actually violating my right to feel what I'm feeling right now, because the more I'm in my story, the less I'm in my feeling. And get off my high horse on vulnerability. So we made it. That's 33 and a half tips on creating more work-life balance. And they came to you from what I like to refer to as a redheaded sage. Not a redheaded human, but a redheaded sage. Which 5 of these tips resonate most with you? Which ones do you want to test drive? Which ones don't work for you? But so most importantly, will you note the 5 tips, 3 tips, like whatever, I'm just pulling 5 out of my butt, that you're willing to test drive? And see if they work for you. Wow. I'm going to take a sip of tea. Then I'd like to get a little bit into some lifeblood of my new membership community, that is. So if you're just logging on, the call to action that I mentioned a little bit earlier, so if you know the tune, then just sing along. Giving away a free year's membership to my Awaken with JP Premium AF community. Just comment in, name 2 people, and just 2 of your friends, and then jump on the wait list to be notified when my community is open for membership. And you can do that. You'll see a link on your screen right now if you're on the live webinar. If you're watching this via replay, then man, you missed the thrill of the aliveness. So you're watching a live webinar in a very unlived way. So anyways, JP, get to the point. If you're not watching this live, you can go to awakenwithjp.com/waitlist. And that'll get you on the wait list. So I'd love to let you know when the community is open for membership. It's going to be super soon. So I want to touch on my manifesto of this community. I want to share that with you. And by the way, if you're on if you're in this session with me and still on this session with me, I'm going to make an assumption that you actually give a crap what I'm talking about, that it actually has a place of meaning in your life. You have some level of a sense of connection with me, and you're interested in my perspectives. You're interested in my practices that have worked for me. So I want to respect that. And it is an assumption, but nonetheless, I'm going to make it, and I'm going to respect that. So therefore, I'd like to take a little bit of time to tell you about my membership community. And in a moment, I'm going to go through my Awake AF manifesto, which has my, I would call it the vision of my community. And I'm also going to share with you the core values that are the lifeblood of my membership community. It's what the community stands for. And it's the direction of our growth trajectory on our journeys of self-development and life design. So you should see on the live webinar, you should see a link on your screen. If you care to click on that link, you can get the free download of the Awake AF manifesto. You're probably supposed to put a price on that. It's normally $95,000. but for you, the probably one-page PDF is going to be for free. So you can check that out. If you're otherwise, you can get the free download of the Awake AF Manifesto at awakenwithjp.com/manifesto. So I'll go through a little bit of that in a moment. But first, I want to talk about why I created this membership community. First off, I've been severely emotionally disconnected for much of my life. When I started my self-growth, my awakening journey when I was 20 years old, I was in a place of extreme numbness. You may say, well, numbness doesn't feel too bad. I would call it a living hell that you don't know you're in because you're numb to it. Becoming aware of my numbness was my first step out of the living hell. So how severely numb was I? How emotionally disconnected was I? So when I was 20, it had been at least 6 years since I cried. And the reason why I became so emotionally disconnected is that's how I dealt with emotions that I had no idea how to deal with. So as a kid, I became the caretaker of my family, which is very, very energetically backwards. It's a disorder. 95% of us on this line probably did our version of it. So because I became the caretaker of my family, my parents are going through separations. There's a lot of instability in the household, good stuff too. I don't want to overly dramatize, but there were definitely some challenges that as a young kid, 7-year-old JP didn't know how to deal with his parents separating. It felt very unstable at a deep level. So what did I do? I tried to become the stable one. Let me try to become the stable one so that I can make this unstable situation feel more stable. Mom and dad are acting like kids, so let me become their parent. So what that cost me was the birthright to be a child. And it cost me the birthright to own my emotions. So what the doctrine of young JP is if I feel an emotion that feels unstable, I don't have the right to feel that because I need to be the stable one. I can't be the unstable one crying. I can't be the unstable one afraid because that doesn't feel safe. I need to be the stable one for me and my family. So that compensatory mindset, it cost me a hell of a lot of heart connection with me. It cost me severe emotional disconnection with my family. Then as I got into my adult life, every girlfriend I pretty quickly became very emotionally disconnected with. And then I just realized, wow, they're so needy. It's like, no, they actually deserve to be with a man who has the courage to connect with them. But I didn't know how to connect with them because I was very disconnected from me. And because I was disconnected from me, I felt anxious. I felt depressed. Like it's not supposed to feel good to be disconnected from myself. So it started to not feel good. After many years of numbness, I was becoming aware of how numb I was. A wise mentor of mine named John McMullen, he suggested, and I believe it to be true, numbness is the most severe level of pain that a person can experience. You think about slamming your head in the car door. You think about getting broken up with you, like, wow, that's painful. That it really hurts. What if you realize numbness is even more pain than that? Emotionally or physically, it's so much pain that we can't process it, so we're not aware of it. We're dissociated from the emotions. So that's the state that I was in. That was my proverbial rock bottom, my pain that motivated me to get into my journey of self-development. And since then, the past 16 years, I've had the chance to work with because I started my journey, naturally, I wanted to start giving it to other people. So I became a coach doing emotional healing work with people over the past 16 years. Had the chance to work with literally thousands of people, teach self-growth and emotional healing classes, personal empowerment classes, and workshops and retreats around the world. So I've had the chance to have those experiences, helping other people help themselves grow. So that's one of the reasons why this community is formed. I wanted to take my experience in my personal journey, recovering from my severe disconnection, my severe pain. I wanted to take the thousands of clients worth of experience I've had, helping them live a more balanced life, recover from their pain, step into their power, and give it to people. But there was a problem. Along my journey, and honestly, my work with clients, a problem developed. Like, was I helping people? Yes. Was I being helped in my own journey? Yes. But there was something that didn't resonate with me that eventually started stunting my growth and felt me, I would call it burnt out working with clients. And it was seriousness. You might say, well, JP, you don't seem like a very serious guy. Yeah, I used to pretend to be serious all the time. So I stopped having fun in my work. I stopped having fun in my journey because it became overly precious, overly, like, severely serious. And then I woke up. Still have a lot more waking up. But I woke up and started to give myself permission to do things my way, which meant I don't have to be severely serious all the time. I can practice this perpetual journey called self-growth, and I can actually be playful. I can help other people and actually be playful. 3 years ago, when I started my comedy videos, that was the initiation of me bringing my playful side into my into my life unapologetically, specifically into my work life where I help people. So a lot of people have zero clue that I've had 16 years of experience working with clients at a heart level, helping them resolve their self-sabotage and step into their personal power. They think, well, JP is just that goofy guy that's made comedy videos. No, just started making the comedy videos on the side. That was originally a rite of passage of me stepping deeper into what's true for me, which is self-development on my terms, where I can be authentic, which means I'm going to laugh and have a good time while I'm doing very sincere, focused work for growing myself. So over the past 3 years, as I've been bringing more and more comedy and in my videos, I do my best to have deeper meanings in the video. The past three years have been a blossoming grounds for me, integrating the sincere, heartfelt guidance I've used with clients with the comedy and playfulness. And here we are at the nexus of the universe called today, where I happen to be on the verge and you happen to be on the verge of me launching the culmination of all that, the sincere, heartfelt guidance, the comedy, launching in my membership program. That was a big sense. What it really means is my membership program, AwakenWithJP Premium AF, it's the culmination of my journey of self-development and finally integrating my comedy fully with my self-development. That full integration is my new community, AwakenWithJP Premium AF. So it's actually very special to me. Like, you might say, I don't care, JP. It's like, I am celebrating. It's a very big rite of passage. It's a big yes. It's been a hell yes from my heart. The past 3 years, as I've been very blessed to become very well known for my comedy videos, I've known the whole time, this 3 years, this is an audience building phase. There's a deeper purpose to it. And will I keep doing comedy videos? Yes. But the purpose of the audience building phase has been to create a group of people who are willing to pay attention to me, and then eventually deliver something very meaningful to them, even more meaningful than the conscious comedy, but deliver that something more meaningful than the conscious comedy when the time is right, when I have their attention, and when I have a lot of their attention. So that's why we're launching the community membership program now. The time hasn't been right. The soil has been needing to be nurtured. So special time, my experience. So what is this community about? Just the practical part of the community. On a weekly basis, I'm going to be delivering exclusive videos where it's a life lesson, it's an interview, or an interview with an awesome person, or it's a deliberate psychological strengthening practice, or it's me sharing a challenge in my life and what I'm doing practically to help myself overcome it so you can learn through my misery. So every week, those lessons will be delivered to you. And there is absolutely a huge community with the lessons. It's not just, here's a lesson, go off in a corner, enjoy. It's, here's a lesson and here's a community to be a part of, to belong to. For me, a community it's like a womb that we can grow in. So to me, that whole community part has been, that's been, I would dare say, the heart that pumps the lifeblood of the lessons. To me, if we don't have a community, then there we are in a cage of solitary confinement, limited, in my opinion. So a little bit about the lifeblood of my community. I've mentioned the Awake AF manifesto. Feel free to jump on that free download. Take a look at some of what we're about. I just, there's a little bit written about each of these manifesto points. I'm just going to read the title, and then I want to share with you, lightning fashion, the core values that govern the lifeblood of our community. So, manifesto, I don't know what to call these. Manifesto point number 1, a meaningful life doesn't have to be a serious life. Like, that's part of what I learned on my journey. That's part of what's important for me. That's part of why I've created a community that I haven't seen elsewhere. It's a community that I would want to be a part of, therefore I'll be a part of it. It's not only a community I want to be a part of, it's a community that I would thrive in. It's a community that potential weirdos like me can thrive in. Number 2, a part of the manifesto is, if we're not growing, we're dying slowly. That's called atrophy. It happens with muscles, and I think that's reflective of how it happens to us at a heart level and psychologically. Number 3, the depth of your connection with others significantly impacts both your purpose and enjoyment in life. Heart-based connection, heart-based living, unapologetically following your heart is very important to me in this community. We're going to be doing so much work around that. Life is happening for you, not to you. Number 5, our body, mind, and emotions are vehicles and drivers that we navigate life with. In other words, we got to take care of our body and our mind. Number 6, we can make the income we want by doing something we actually enjoy. In other words, we can go in on ourselves. We don't have to be a slave prostituting our time for a little bit of money doing work. What if we actually had a vocation that enlivens our soul? And I dare say, if that's part of your path, there it is. It's to be discovered. So this community is going to help support us so that we can actually find a way to earn a living doing what we want rather than doing what we feel obligated to do and doing what we feel scared not to do. Number 7, who you think you should be and who you think you are not always authentically who you are. It's a little bit mysterious. So To close out tonight, let me rattle off these. It's a dozen, or it's actually a couple dozen core values. I'm just going to read them. I'm not going to explain them. I just ask you to take in this information. It's what the community's about. Might feel good to you, might feel crappy to you. I ask you to just consider. So the cultural core values, the ethos of Awaken with JP Premium AF: move towards discomfort, embrace vulnerability, be playful, explore the unknown. Challenging self is how growth happens. Practice acceptance. Take inspired action. Live from your heart. Consider your heart as the master and your head as the servant. Honor your intuition. Laugh at yourself. Just shook the camera. I got pretty excited there. Take self-responsibility. Communicate honestly. Feel your feelings. Don't believe everything you think. Realize that what works for you will eventually work against you. Express creativity. Oh, so important. Tend to the garden of your health. Embrace change. Honor your wisdom. Own your experience and perceptions. Practice proactive living rather than reactive surviving. See other people as your mirror. Question everything. Say yes to your weirdness. Aim for authenticity. Realize there's always something more to heal. Embrace curiosity in favor of certainty. And realize life is happening for you, not to you. Man, thank you. Thank you for being a part of listening to the core values of Awaken with JP Premium AF. Like, I'm honored to share that with you. I'm really proud to share that with you. So before I've got to leave and be almost a little bit late for my book signing, I think I'm actually going to make it. My last call is, if you are at all inspired to join me on the journey of self-growth, self-development, and designing the life that you want in this new membership community, I'd be honored to have you if it's right for you. So jump on the wait list if you care to. AwakenWithJP.com/waitlist. If you're here right live on the webinar page, you're going to find a link right here on your page. Feel free to join that if it's resonating with you. And I'll be excited for the launch that's coming up soon. And in the meantime, for you, all you lovely people who have taken the time out of your life to join me for this third webinar, I appreciate you. Would you be willing to put into action something that you've heard here tonight? If so, like, wonderful. Like, that's exciting to me. Action excites me. Inaction, not so much. So I appreciate you guys. Thank you for being you. I think you are more powerful than you think you are. That's my belief about you. And I'll be looking forward to talking with you the next time we get a chance, and possibly see you in my community if that's right for you. Talk to you guys soon.